everybody. You are very, very welcome. It is Business Block on Monday today. And on Mondays, we have Women's Inspire Network members. I'm absolutely delighted to have with me today Sonya Murphy Lyons of Mezzo Music Academy in Dublin. You're very welcome to the show, Sonya.
Thanks very much, Miriam. Lovely to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all.
Okay. Well, my parents would have enrolled me in the Royal Irish Academy when I was 5. I've got 3 other siblings, and my eldest sister would have started before me in piano. So my dad is a musician, performer, songwriter. So, you know, we would have grown up with music in the house. So for him to enroll us in music lessons from a young age, you know, it was always going to happen. So yes. A great love of music, as you do yourself. But I would have done all my musical training through Royal Irish Academy. Eventually I settled on classical guitar, and I took all my grades to the teaching diploma and performance diploma and all of that. So I would have been in community choirs. I would have been very much involved in music in the schools that I went to. I directed the folk group when we were in 6th year. Actually, I taught them all one of the songs my dad wrote, which was great as well. So I'd always find a way to bring his music into what I'm doing.
Lovely.
I did my music degree in UCD. I did my B.Mus there. And actually, when I left UCD, there was very little work from that point of view, and as a classical guitarist, you're not really welcome in the orchestras or anything like that, you know.
Yeah,
so it's a bit of a funny one, you know. It's a bit of a funny one. Plenty of duets, trios, quartets, all that kind of thing through my college years from a performance point of view, but not a huge amount of work in that industry. So I ended up then getting into you know, auctioneering, as in property. I did my IAVI qualifications. I worked for an estate agent for a couple of years. I went over to South Africa, and I worked selling timeshare over there. I worked for a big realty company called Stocks and Stocks. And I got a huge amount of kind of sales training over there, which really, really stood to me. Best thing I ever did. So when I came back from South Africa, then I would have taken up a role, sales and marketing for hotel groups. So I worked in kind of that field for quite a while. And then my mom is an interior designer, and she asked me would I come on board with her because she was so busy in what she was doing, but sure, the boom was on then.
Yes.
So I did the Rodeck interior design course, and then I joined her, and we worked together for many years. And then it was really just when I had my first child that I decided I want to be at home a little bit more.
Yes.
So I went back to my teaching, because obviously my teaching would have brought me all the way through university. You know, the money that I earned paid for my car, my insurance, and anything I needed, my little holidays and stuff. So I went back to teaching basically when I had my first child. And sure, I was inundated by the time the word got out that I was teaching classical guitar. So many students. And then I had parents asking me, do I teach piano? Do I teach singing, cello, flute? And then I found myself contacting my previous UCD, you know, music mates. And then I realized, hang on a minute, why don't I just open a music school?
Yes, yes.
I did.
Yes.
In 2011, in the recession. But sure, hey.
It was calling to you. It was calling to you. You had to do it.
Absolutely.
And would you consider yourself to be, you know, one of those musicians who also feels the call to teach, apart from perform, you know, because you know the way we'll find colleagues and actors as well can be a bit like this too. They are very focused on being either one or the other. But for some people, they've got 1, 2, 3 caps that they need to wear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I was, you know, 18, 19, 20, teaching then, it was a means to an end. I think coming back into teaching as a mom, I think it's completely different, because you can totally understand the little person in front of you a whole lot more than you would have been able to do as a late teen. I'm not saying that the teachers in their late teens wouldn't make good teachers, but any of my staff that come to me that are young, I will give them lots of guidance and help them along the way. So what I would have learned as a young teacher myself, I can now give that information and advice to any young teachers that work for me. But you know what? I absolutely loved teaching. It was a pleasure to sit down, because obviously with my instrument, I'd sit. You were probably standing more as a singer, but I would sit with the classical guitar, and it was a pleasure to sit down and teach. And I loved it, really, really loved it. Loved being able to help the children, loved to see their little face when they got something, they accomplished something that they found difficult, and to be able to give them the praise for that. So I really enjoyed teaching. And, I had to give it up in 2014 when we moved into our new building, because my time was much better spent running the business than
the management,
sitting in a room teaching.
So you mentioned moving into the new building. So you actually started out in Kimmage, didn't you?
I started out in an industrial estate in Kimmage, in a tiny little building. I had absolutely zero money to set a business up. So I literally went in and changed the carpets and painted and soundproofed with myself and my brother. We did a huge amount of work. We got the building ready. I didn't know if there was going to be an interest in the area so much. So I got some flyers printed up, and I literally ran up and down traffic light junctions. I stood outside primary schools, secondary schools, and I shouted about it everywhere to all and sundry, whoever would listen to me. And the phone started ringing. So I had 4 little teaching rooms down in that building. And sure, within 2 years, we were full. All our rooms were full for all the hours that my teachers could teach. Yes. So I was kind of faced with, do you stay where you are, and do you, tell people that you're full and you can put them on a waiting list, or do you expand? And I kind of figured, because I worked so hard to bring in all those early customers, I couldn't bear the thought of saying I'm full. So I thought, I'm going to make a big move here. So I had to find the right premises, which took a while. In the end, I found the premises we're in now, which is fabulous. It's on Greenlee Road in Terenure.
Yes.
And we're right in a row of shops there. So, there's a pharmacy and a dentist and a newsagent. So it's a great little spot. But the whole building was open plan. So I had to get an architect. We got plans drawn, and I managed to fit 11 teaching rooms into the building, all purpose built, all soundproofed. In fact, soundproofed so well, as I was saying to you earlier on, because, with Wi-Fi stuff, yeah. So, but it was important that from room to room, if you're in room 1, that you're not disturbed in room 2 if you're learning a different instrument.
Yes.
But the wall that comes out onto the corridor, I deliberately didn't soundproof. So when I'm in reception, I can hear all the beautiful music coming out into the hallway. So, but we moved into our new building in 2014, and it's a phenomenal area, the Terenure area. Lots of lovely young families, and plenty of teens.
I know it well. Yes, I know it very well. Kimmage and Terenure. I used to have the lease on the tea rooms in Mount Jerome Cemetery.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I used to have. Gosh, if I'd known you were there, I would have been hammering on your door, because on Saturdays and Sundays I used to have harpists and musicians in. I don't think they do it now, and certainly in the pandemic they wouldn't have been able to open the place, but I relinquished the lease in 2016. But that's what I was running up till then, so you would still have been going.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
it's a thing to think about for the future. Maybe pop down to them at some point. But it's quite a thing when you've actually taken the plunge and you've opened a premises the way you did in Kimmage, and you put all that effort into the building, and then suddenly within a very short time, I've got to leave this. Yeah. That must have been quite heartbreaking, really, because you just put so much into your baby and then you're going to move the baby somewhere else.
You know what? Not really, because I'm very much the type, I don't really get attached to buildings. And, it's funny, we'd have a joke and people would say, do you think you're in your forever home? And I'd say, well, I never say forever.
That's important.
Might say, but your home is beautiful. And I said, no, but it doesn't matter. I would quite happily now move on to something else. So I'm kind of very practical kind of person. And you see, I knew that I was bringing all of my students with me. So that really wasn't an issue. I tell you, the only issue that would have, I guess I would have lost sleep over, was moving into a building that was 5 times bigger than the one I was leaving. That was a bit of a worry.
Yes.
It was a financial risk of note.
Yes.
And, you know, even some family members advised me against it, but I just knew that I would make it work. Just like the first building when I set it up, I knew I could make it work and I would not stop until I did. So moving into the new building, it was just so exciting because I just felt now I'm in the right place. I never felt I was in the right place with the first one, but I knew I needed to get started.
Yes.
Whereas when I moved into Terenure, I felt I'm home.
Yes.
I don't think I'll ever leave there. I'd say Mezzo and Terenure will always be there no matter what.
Wow. And that's quite a statement coming from you. If you've always had this feeling that, you know, you could actually go from A to B without getting terribly uncomfortable about the move, then that's quite a thing to be able to say.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there that you also you're used to working with family members. Your father was a songwriter and composer. You have other family members who are involved in the business too. That can be high risk as well, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I had to convince my dad to come and teach, which he did when we were in KCR days. So he would have been one of the first teachers that I had hired, really. And he's an amazing teacher, and he's a real kind of easygoing, happy-go-lucky. His knowledge is just second to none. The songs he can just play, you can pull from his head, his technique. He's very particular with his students. He makes sure he teaches acoustic and electric guitar. So he's very particular about their rhythm arm and, you know, that they're making their notes clear and they're not buzzing any strings. He's very particular with them, but as a result, his students are, you know, so well kind of qualified in what they're doing. So that was great. My sister is a pianist and she got into directing choirs. So she was already doing that by the time I opened Mezzo in KCR. So I asked her then, I said, I'm going to set up a Mezzo choir. So I asked her then to take that, which she still does. They're doing wonderful.
Is that the ladies' choir?
Yeah, that's the ladies' choir. It kind of started out just as a choir, but then it was only ladies that joined. So, you know, we call it the Mezzo Ladies' Choir now. It was just by default that it ended up just with women in it. So my sister Maria also teaches any junior choirs, so they've been cancelled with COVID. And then Maria's daughter, Sorsha, who's my niece, she was finishing up in college as I was moving into the Terenure building. And I said to her, so why don't you come in and do some admin and give me work experience. And, you know, so she's been with me since 2014 and she's the manager of Mezzo now. So
that's amazing. That is honestly, someone's looking down on you. For sure. And just looking at the range of instruments, it's so you've got guitar, you've got piano, you've got violin, viola, saxophone,
flute, percussion, drums. So we kind of have two aspects to the school. So we have the classical side where we teach all the classical instruments, you know, classical voice, musical theatre voice. And then we have the other side where we do, you know, drums, bass guitar, acoustic, electric, rock and pop vocals, as opposed to classical and musical theatre. So we have the different sides of the academy. So it's, you know, to be honest with you, as I was running the business over the years, I would always listen to what the demand was in the area. So if somebody came in and said, do you have a class for 2-year-olds? And I would say, you know what, I don't right now, but you know what, I will have very soon and I'll get in touch with you. And then that would prompt me to look into setting up a class for 2-year-olds. So similarly with the instruments, I was getting more and more interest in kind of rock and pop. So I thought, okay, we'll delve into that side of things. But as a result now, when we do our recitals, they're so enjoyable because we have a complete mix of all styles and genres of music up on stage that day. So for people who don't want to, I guess, listen to a full kind of 2-hour concert of all classical music, we've got the other little bits and pieces that are popped in along the way. So it means it's enjoyable for everybody who's there.
Absolutely wonderful. And is there a particular centre or theatre that you like to put those on in, or do you do them in
Yeah.
your own school?
Yeah, I have been using the Donald McCann Theatre in Terenure College. So we're right beside Terenure College. In fact,
Yes,
my
I
son
know.
goes there now, but it's a secondary school, and they have a fabulous theatre where they have seating for, you know, upward to 300 people. So it's a fully built-in stage with a lighting rig. So I would always then organize a sound engineer, give him the running order, discuss which instruments, you know, so say like a classical guitarist will need more volume on the mic than a saxophonist would. So I would go through each act with the sound engineer to make sure that, you know, all the sounds are right and everyone in the audience can hear every instrument and every student that performs on the stage, you know. So it's a great venue, and for now it's been fine. Yeah, for now it's been fine. We'll probably reach a stage where I'll need a bigger venue with more seating, but you know, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
No, that's great. It's the Carmelites who run it. My uncle's a Carmelite up there, actually.
Yeah.
So, but they really do enjoy. They put a lot of effort into, you know, their venues and their teaching, and this both with the rugby and with music. They put an awful lot of effort into it. So it's an ideal place to go. I totally agree with you. Just looking on your website about some of the articles that you've put on, which are really very interesting, because you emphasize how music develops a young person's sense of acceptance and tolerance.
Yes.
And sense of achievement, and it promotes achievement.
Yes.
So important to stress those things. It's not all about excellence in technique. It's about the ability to develop all those other abilities too, isn't it?
100%. And sometimes even more so than all the technical side of things, because, you know, as a teacher, you know, every student that you have in front of you is completely different to the next. Whether it's their musical ability, some have a natural music ability, some have to work harder to achieve a similar ability. Some children are not very confident. So, you know, you would teach them in a completely different way to the way you would teach a student that has buckets of confidence. So I think, you know, we very much, you know, take the person in front of us and think, what's going to be the best way forward for this particular child? So for example, a student that lacks in confidence, I would build them up to the recital. I'd give them nearly a year in advance, and I'd say, I'm going to have a grand piano on the stage, and I'd really like for you to come up and play whatever song you feel you're most confident playing. That's the one that I want you to sign up for. And you can put on your lovely dress, and you can have your hair tied with whatever, you know, we're talking 5 or 6 year olds. Yes. And they will come up, and even if they come up and play Old MacDonald Had a Farm or Twinkle Twinkle, it's irrelevant really what they play. They're going to play something that they're confident playing. And when they stand up and hear the applause, and they feel, you know, you feel that buzz from the audience, and they've come off the stage saying, I want to do it again, I want to do it again. I'm going, you just have to wait till the next recital. And then I look at them walking away from the stage thinking, wow, we were working on this child for 8 months to get her on the stage, and she didn't want to do it. So we don't force anyone at the same time. If somebody really doesn't want to get up there, we would never force them, but we would give them a gentle push, because I think some of us, if we're left to our own devices, we may not do anything. We may not push ourselves to that moment. So, you know, while they're rehearsing in the school for exams, for performances, I'll always pop in, see how they're getting on. They might sing a verse and a chorus. If it's a singer, I'll give them lots of praise and say, oh, that's going to sound so good. Or then I could be making an ensemble. So it could be classical instruments, it could be piano, flute, cello, violin, viola. We could have a singer in there. It could be a Disney song. It could be a rock band, whatever it is that we're working on. If anyone is apprehensive about doing it, you can see they want to do it, but they're lacking in the confidence. I would always say, come to the rehearsal. Just try it. Try out the rehearsal. If you really don't like it, then don't worry. I'll get someone to do your part. But I find that once I get them into the rehearsal, they love it. And they're looking around at all the other musicians, and you know yourself, working with other musicians, I mean, you can't teach that. You've got to be in the room,
you've got to experience it,
and experiencing it.
Yeah.
And that itself then brings confidence.
Yes.
So some of the students that I really would have had to convince to get up on that stage, you know, a couple of years later down the road, and they could be playing on 4 or 5 songs in the recital, and they're dying to get back up there. So we very much focus on the person, what they want to get from their lessons. Do they want to go for exams? If they do, that's great, but we will be very careful in how we advise them as to when they're ready for their next exam. We don't like pushing exams on students. It doesn't work. It makes the student feel like they're under pressure. You know, and if things don't go well for them, then they feel they're not good enough. And I really don't like that whole side to.
Yeah, I like what I'm hearing here. I really like what I'm hearing, because I think a lot of us who, you know, when we were doing music at school, we had that extra pressure laid on us, you know.
It was the way they taught us.
Yeah.
Some of them, some teachers are amazing, but some of my teachers, even, it was all about, you know, do it right, practice harder. And, you know, sometimes you lose the enjoyment there. Yes. So I think what we have to do as adults, especially with me running a music school, I have to draw from my own experiences.
Well, can I just go there to adults, because the school does cater to adults as well, young adults and older.
Yeah. We've lots of adults that come into us. In fact, it's funny because I can't wait for the shutters to be open and the building to be open again, because the amount of adults that would walk in and say, do you teach people as old as me? And I was saying, you're not old. You're never too old to learn music. So we would have quite a lot of adults. Some of them are their children already come to us, and they'll say, do you know what I did? I did all my 8 grades in piano when I was like 20. You know, up until 20. So I'd really love to get back into it. So I would always say, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to play for enjoyment? Or if they can sing, I would recommend, you know, don't think about going back to the classical piano program. How about we develop your voice and we teach you the chords of those songs so you can accompany yourself? Because that would be a lot more enjoyment for an adult than actually trying to go back through the classical program. Of course, if that's what they want to do, we'll bring them through it. But it's all about enjoyment as an adult. Our time is limited. So that's why our online classes are working very well for adults, because they don't have to make that trip. And I mean, we're all on the clock. And even if it's a 20-minute trip there and back, you know, you could get a whole dinner on, you know, cooked and on the table by then. So we have a lot more responsibilities as adults, and our time is very limited. So to be able to just log on at 8 o'clock at night when you've sorted the children out and have your own 30 minutes, you know, there's nothing like it. There's you know, and also I think, you know, if we're working in a stressful environment for adults who have a stressful job, you know, that 30 or 45 minutes of pure relaxation, you know, enjoyment, engagement with the teacher. I'll always make sure that I've paired them with the right type of teacher for their personality. So there'll always be a bit of a laugh, a bit of fun, you know, not too much pressure. I would always say to the teachers, this particular lady wants to do X, Y, and Z. Don't be putting her under any pressure. She's very busy. So
very important.
I find out as much information as I can from any adult that talks to me, and then I relay that onto the teacher. So as a result, then our adults will stay with us for quite a while, because we've got that connection right from the offset.
And you are putting them at the center of the class.
Oh yes,
it becomes client-centered then, and they will feel secure and confident and be willing to invest in the task better than whatever the exercises are and whatever the piece is. That sounds wonderful, particularly for adults. That is so important. Can I just ask you, once the pandemic hit, I'm presuming you did some online before that, but what was the experience like of then shifting everything online?
Well, funny enough, we didn't do anything online before that.
Oh,
I know. So all of our teaching was based in the building. So when the pandemic hit, we closed, I think it was the 11th or 12th of March. And Sorsha was saying to me, what are we going to do? And I said, look, we might be only closed for 2 weeks. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to get them to come for their lessons during their Easter holidays to make up for those 2 weeks. And that's how I saw it. But then obviously the announcement was made and we went into lockdown. So I thought, well, okay, I've got this really big building. I have to pay, I rent it. I have to pay the services to it. I have all of these bills, rates, Wi-Fi. So I thought, okay, well, actually, you know, turning around to our students and saying, we're just going to close and we'll refund you, not an option. Because as you know, like, you pay for your music lessons in advance, because obviously the teachers are paid in advance of the term. So I thought, we're going to have to go online. I worried about,
that's an immensely stressful moment.
How it was going to work out. Was everyone going to be able to manage it?
Yeah.
So what I did was, the first thing I did was I sent an email out to the school saying, guys, we're all in lockdown. We're going to go online. I need you to come on board with me for this. You have to remember, we would have had students from the age of, I would have cancelled all the baby classes. Obviously, there was never a question they were going to go online, but we would have students from age 5 right up to people in their 80s. So I just basically said, I need you to come on board. I need you to be positive with me on this. I had to kind of wait for everyone to come back to say yay or nay. And anyone that was saying, no, I don't think so, I just worked really, really hard to convince them to try at least one lesson. You've got to, you know, yes. I'm not going to put you wrong. You've got to try one lesson. So I kind of, you know, battled on for about a month trying to schedule lessons for everyone. We had to, our schedule was set in stone. We'd set that in September. We do a new schedule every year. So then all of a sudden the schedule that we put so many hours into was totally up in the air, because people's lessons that suited them for in-person in the building, those times wouldn't necessarily suit now that everybody was working from home. So we had to rejig the whole schedule. We had to work with the teachers, and we got people online. And then all of a sudden they figured, it's okay. It's not bad. We can do this. So then I realized, well, I need to look after my teachers now, because they would walk out to my reception and put their hand out for any resource they needed. I have all the books there, all the exam books, all the syllabi, repertoire books, theory information, exam papers for written. I have it all there in the building. So I thought, we need to now provide all of this for our teachers remotely. So we had to build a resource library basically on everything that we already had in the building, so that they could access it. They could still access if they needed from their laptop. I also had to take all my teachers on Zoom calls for like little meetings, because ordinarily when we're in the building, I would be able to talk to them. Yes. As they come out of a room, they would say to me, can we talk? So there was always lots of talking going on, whereas I had to start doing Zoom meetings with them then as well. Then we were troubleshooting. So the first while when we went online, people couldn't find the link, or they couldn't get onto the link. They didn't know how to use Zoom. So every 30 minutes we could have, say, 12 students logging on, but like half of them might have an issue logging on. So, you know, every 30 minutes there could be 6 people that you're trying to troubleshoot with over a phone or over a laptop. So it was a bit of a haze of a stressful time, but I kind of knew I just had to keep going, and I just need to get the majority of people online. Within about 3 or 4 weeks, we got about 400 students online.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Congratulations. What a thing. What a thing.
I know, it was crazy. And my children were joking with me. They're quite funny like their dad. They've all a great sense of humor, you know, and they'd walk into me and they go, you remember me, Mom? I'm your son. I'm like, stop it.
Just thought I'd show my face in case you forgot me.
But there genuinely was 3 or 4 weeks where my head was just stuck in the laptop or stuck in a phone, because it was just a task I had to complete. I had to get everybody online. I had to support the teachers. Yeah. I had to support the people that were struggling with the online. Some students struggled full stop, but that comes more down to them and how they handle things. And if they suffered with any anxiety, they didn't want to be on a screen. They didn't want to see themselves on a screen. So
you will get that. You will get that. Absolutely. Did you ever find, was it the inverse as well? Were there ever any teachers who found it very difficult to make the step?
To be honest, all of my teachers find it way more difficult teaching online.
Yeah.
It's more work for them. A lot more preparation for them. And then you're constantly on a screen as well. And then you have people who can't log in, and then they've got to text me. So if they've gone into a meeting and someone hasn't turned up, I get a text. I'll text the parent and say, just a reminder to log on for the lesson. So we have a great little system from that point of view, but I'm always there to support the teachers. And that's why we needed to create, to make things as easy as possible for them and to support them as much as we can, because it is much harder for them to do a full day's teaching online.
There's a lot of effort, extra effort goes in, because I know on the occasions that I did it now, I'm open for singing in the house again now. But the thing that I found very difficult with teaching singing online was when you're teaching singing, you need to see how people are breathing into their back. You need to see how the body is moving. And it's very difficult.
I know.
If they're just head and shoulders, sometimes you need to lay hands on the person as well to give them an idea of where they should be breathing into, which is not something you can really do very easily anymore. But, we all had that experience of the teacher saying, no, it's got to be here. It's literally got to be here. So sometimes, when that confidence is built up between the teacher and the student and you can do that, that can sometimes be the only way to get the message through to them that, oh, yes, I really need to move. I need to reposition totally. And you can't do any of that. The interpersonal cues, so much is missing.
And also, as a singing teacher, the chances are you might be accompanying on piano or something. Of course, with the lag, you can't accompany live. So we had to find a solution where, certainly for some of any of the students that were doing exams, we had the teachers recording on piano what they were going to accompany in the class and sending it as a separate file. So the student
then play. That's exactly what I had to do as well. Yeah.
So we really had to think of every way to adjust all the measures that we would normally use to make it work as best as we can online. And, though some people would say, say, for example, the breathing, you can't see it. It's also like my son is recording for his grade 3 piano, and you can't feel the musicality through a video. I don't know how the examiners are trying to mark all these videos, but
it's very difficult.
Students that ooze musicality, that give you goosebump pimples when they perform in a small room in the building, those same students, when their videos come in, it's harder to hear the dynamics. It's harder to feel the musicality that they have. So, everyone is kind of battling from every angle. But as I say to the parents, it's better than having no lessons. It's better
it is.
that they're still progressing in some way. Yes.
Absolutely. And it really is. It's a question of redesigning the lesson.
Yes.
I mean, the thing that I suppose annoys me, as you say, the lag, but from teaching singing from that point of view, it's getting the student to go back into their Zoom settings and remove, the buffer that will suppress the sound, because very often when they hit their top notes, that goes out.
Yeah.
And it's not them. It's actually the system compressing the sound.
Yes.
And just getting them to remember to go in, make sure you undo that. It has its drawbacks, but at the same time you can work around it much more. You can streamline it much more than you think. And I find that, in fact, you find yourself feeling a lot more positive about your own ability to design and your own ability to take a situation and say, right, okay, there are problems, but I can make this better.
That's it. Because I'm a solutions type person. It's just it's just my default mechanism. And I'll say, tell me the problem, I'll find a solution. It's just how I operate. So, we would have to go through all the instruments to find different solutions, to work with the teachers, to work with the students and the parents. I mean, I was even driving around to people's houses, dropping off instruments, drum kits or, whatever. People
God love you.
On their instruments. I was saying, right here, give us it. I'll put a new string on.
This, just getting back to the business side of it, that is the sort of thing you have to do for your own business.
Yeah, totally.
It is absolutely hands-on, 24 hours. It's rough, but it's what you have to do. Totally. But there is payback.
Oh, listen, even if it's not financial payback, it's actually just to be able to see how all our students are doing, to actually see the enjoyment in their faces when they're playing music, whether they're sending in their exam videos, whether they're performing when we're allowed to perform again. It's getting messages from parents saying how amazing their music lessons have been, what it's meant to them through this lockdown, the focus it's given their child, or even for adult students, the focus it's given them. Some of them are frontline workers. So to actually be able to just enjoy music for 45 minutes one day a week, yes, even if they don't get much time to practice. So I think when you're able to provide an outlet like that for hundreds and hundreds of people, to me, that's the reward when I see how happy they all are. And that's something I miss about the shutters being down, because we create a very warm environment for our students. And it was lovely always seeing their little faces coming in, you know, in the door, their instrument on their back, and they were just so happy to get going. And that would just make my day, all those smiling faces, you know.
And, you know, I know everybody says you have to be passionate about what you do, but it's kind of a glib answer in some respects. Of course you do, but your reputation is everything. And when you have been going out, as you say, even with, you know, dropping off instruments, paperwork, whatever it is,
yeah,
that is your reputation as well. That will always stand to you. Always. And your reputation is everything then.
It's absolutely everything, because I mean, it's like your good name, you know. It's something my mom would always say, you know, you can't, you know,
can't put a value on that.
No, always keep your name, you know, good, squeaky clean. And because if someone has something bad to say about you, that's what will spread around. So I always see the same with the reputation for the company. I would always go out of my way to try to please, to try to make things easier, like with scheduling. I know there's a lot of schools, and the ones I attended would be an example, where they would just say your lesson is on a Tuesday at 5 and your theory class is on a Saturday at 9. There you go. Whereas we'll say, okay, well, how are you fixed? How many children have you got coming here? What's the best day for you? I'll try and get them in on the day you've got the least amount of activities on.
Yes.
So once people are willing to pay their deposit in advance, to be able to secure those kind of special times, we will work around and we'll say we'll get the theory class before their practical lesson or after. So while it would be much easier for us to just tell everyone when their times were in the schedule, we actually go that extra mile, because I know as a mom, I have two boys. I know what it's like trying to fit everything in around sports and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, we will always do that kind of thing. Dropping instruments off, not a problem. Yes. Lots of places wouldn't do that. But to me, well, I mean, the student needs it. So at the end of the day, I'm going to do it. It doesn't matter where I have to drive to or how long it's going to take me.
Now, just you've got various options for not just courses, not with regard to just courses, but also payment options. You do installments as well, don't you? Which not an awful lot of places do.
Yeah.
So are they 17, 18-week long?
Yeah.
Courses?
Usually about that, the way the year works out. So we do 2 terms a year, September to end of January and February to mid-June. So they're usually around 17 to 18 weeks. So for some people, it can be a big hit to pay for the full fee, especially if they've 3 or 4 children coming to us. Obviously, we do organise a sibling discount, but you know, if they can just split that payment over three of the 4 months, it makes it a lot easier. You know, some parents will do standing orders. I mean, really, I don't mind what way the fees are paid. Obviously, once they're paid, because you can't run a business if they're not. But you know, and even parents that'd say to me, "Oh God, I'm sorry, I'm late with the feds." I'd always say, "Don't worry, because you've never let me down. So I'm not gonna." You know, I wouldn't be putting pressure on people. I know these people personally. I know all these parents for years coming in and out. Yeah. So, I mean, I would be as understanding and as helpful as I can at any time, you know. But it is great to have the payment plan.
It is. It's terrific. What would your 3 top pieces of advice be now for anyone who has managed to survive the pandemic? The business is there. It's still ticking over. What would your 3 pieces of advice be for them?
I think... you know, I think keep learning is very important. You know, when I went into lockdown, I jumped on the Mentors Work program, and I learned so much about running your business digitally. I needed to learn about that. You know, I was always in person in the building running the business. So I had to kind of upskill in order to kind of feel confident, I guess, in what I was doing and what I was telling everybody else to do. So I think, you know, never stop learning, always take an opportunity to learn. I think also, I think communication with your clients is so important. Communicating what you're doing when you're moving online, why you're doing it, why it needs to be done, you know, be very, very clear with everything. Like I would have had quite a few people coming on saying, yeah, but surely the lessons are going to be cheaper because they're online. And straight away I would just say, absolutely not.
It's harder.
It's harder. They should be more expensive. But you know what I would just say is that, you know what, the quality of the lesson and the way the teacher imparts the information and encourages your child to love music, that will never change, whether they're face-to-face or whether they're online. So therefore the fee won't be changing. But like, I understand where you're coming from, but you need to understand where I'm coming from. I've got a building down there with the shutters down and I still need to finance that. So, you know, we're all in the same boat here. But I think transparency and being honest, so that, because, you know, I think some people feel if they're in a difficult position that they might be the only person that's in that. Whereas when you actually say, but look, this is what I'm trying to deal with as well. So please, you know, bear with me. So I think being completely honest about a big change like that, because, and also having the understanding to troubleshoot through it with people, because some people can adjust to a big change like that really easily, whereas others struggle more with it. So instead of adapting the attitude of, but sure, look, everyone else can do it, why can't they? You can't adapt that attitude. You've got to say, how can I help you? What can I do to help? What can I do to make this easier for you?
Yes.
You know, and then I think also, what else would have been about pivoting online? You know, I think to have your eyes and ears open for new opportunities. You know, when we went online last summer was the first time I couldn't run my summer camps, which are hugely popular in the area.
Yes. What was the age group for those? I've seen those on your website. Were they?
They're for ages 4 to 11 for the junior camp.
4 to 11.
And then we would do age 12 to 14-year-old jam, like kind of like a rock jam type workshop. So if you want to be in a band, you can come in and rock out. Then we do an older age group for like 15 to 18-year-olds. So with the pandemic, I had to cancel all of my lessons there, all my summers camps. But what I did was I developed a summer program where the private students were able to continue their music learning throughout the summer. We hadn't really done that before because we were always trying to get people in the building to take summer lessons. Whereas because we were all online, the summer program worked really well. So kind of keeping your eyes and ears open to what's happening around you and then trying to embrace the situation you're in and make it work to the best of your ability.
Absolutely fantastic. Sonya Murphy Lyons has been my guest today on Business Block. Absolutely amazing. I can hear the stage psychology coming through, the business psychology, the whole lot, all coming together very, very nicely in the pandemic. And it's people like you that we need to hear from. I'm absolutely delighted that you came on today. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you, Miriam. It's my pleasure.
No problem. And listen, everybody, every Monday, Women's Inspire members will be on the show. They really are inspirational. They've got great advice. And as you've heard there are people who have really put the hours in and taken on the challenge of change. And that is something that we've all got to do right now, myself included. Thank you so much, Sonya.
No problem.
We'll see you, everybody. Thank you.